stuff just now, and I don't want to forget it. So, recap. No one knows anything, yet we all know everything. If you understand the universe as a whole, the contradictory makes sense. But if you don't and you're living in the moment, it can be a beautiful thing. Living in the moment can be a beautiful thing. Living in the moment can suck so much. Understanding the universe can suck so much. Yet, understanding the universe can be great. It depends on your perspective, depends on the vibe, depends on your mood. And in my current situation, I could be so pissed off about how I'm being treated and how people were being treated and all this stuff. Or I could be grateful of the little things and the serendipitous. And it doesn't matter because it all matters. And it's like, wait, what? What do you mean? And that's what I'm trying to say. When you're in the YOLO, you only have one life to live. It's true, you only have one life you live. As the person you are in this particular point on your particular timeline, as the person you are, born to the parents you have, that makes sense. There's only one life. As that particular person, if there's something so beautiful about being in the moment and forgetting about the world. I know that sometimes there have been moments where I was like, I was just in my own little bubble and I was living my best life and I didn't care. Or I was in my bubble with someone else and together we didn't care. We were in our bubble and it was like, who are you other people? I don't give a fuck. And it's so nice. But there's times of being in a bubble and you're in pain or shame or guilt or whatever fucking bullshit, whatever words, yada yada, blah blah, womp womp womp. And that part really sucks, and you just have to like power through it or be patient through it. And the contradictory makes you angry because there's an internal conflict. It's like, this really sucks. I want it to be over. Why is this happening? This is super dumb and I'm tired. Conflict when you're just in your personal YOLO whatever of the bullshit of being in the bull and the bubble of the bullshit. But when you're in the beautifulness of the bubble, oh my gosh, it's so nice, so beautiful. And then there's the mundane of just like, I'm just here or whatever. But then there's also the being part of the universe and realizing like we reincarnate and we're always reincarnating. And screaming in the void sucks. I remember as a child thinking about what was worse. The fact that we all died and we go to heaven and we're stuck there, or in hell, and that people are just stuck there. And it reminded me of like how people would act like, well, if you aren't a certain religion, you'll go to hell. And I was like, that's unfair to all the people who don't know. And so it's like, yeah, it's unfair to think that if people go to hell, like, they're just stuck there. If people go to heaven, they're just stuck there. And I was like, I know other people feel this way because I watched The Good Place. And the good place, they do the same thing. In the good place, there are people who are like, I'm tired of being in heaven. Just like there are people who are tired of being in hell. It's like, it's boring. I'm over it, right? So the idea of being an immortal soul and you're reincarnating, or you're an immortal soul and you don't reincarnate, both becomes boring as fuck. You're just like, wow, I've done this for 1,000 years, or I've done this for a millennia. I'm over it. And so it makes sense. I just know that as humans, if we all tap into that energy of we're all dead, the universe is dead, there's no more living, we're all just souls screaming into the void. We're just the lost souls screaming into the void. And then one day you bump into someone else and you're like, wow, I haven't talked to someone in 1,000 years. I haven't talked to someone in 1 billion years. And it's a literal statement. It's not a over exaggeration. But when we're on Earth, it's an exaggeration because you're in your YOLO. You're in your like, oh, I'm just here for this lifetime. But what if it isn't from you're living your lifetime? What if it's you literally remembering being in the void and it was reality and it was just the darkness and you were the only one there? But you didn't know that just a little further there's someone else. And so I think that's why people like the Bible about the whole thing with the sound hits the light and there's the face of the water. Bullshit. Anyways, blah, 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 blah. Because it's basically explaining a story of souls screaming in the void. You're all different. You're one type of particle, someone else is a different particle, someone else is a different particle. And you're by yourself because you're like air. Air is particles spread the fuck out. And if you run into another air particle, you're like, hey, I've been roaming around here for a while. Ain't nobody was around here. I was just here by myself. And so by yourself, you might be living your best life. By yourself, you might not be living your best life. But the whole point is you run into someone else. And the someone else just means someone not like you. And if we talked about elements like earth and water and fire and air, it just means someone not like you. It doesn't specifically mean you have to be that element, yada, yada, yada. It's all fucking metaphors. And it's funny because when I was really young, I sucked at metaphors. And I was really bad at it. I only understood the world as very literal. And people made fun of me for it. And then one day, I just made it my mission to know every metaphor and every saying and everything like that. And then one day I was like, oh, my language is metaphors and my slang. My language is sarcasm. No, no, it was my language is metaphors and my slang was sarcasm. Or was it the other way? Or was it my language was sarcasm and my slang was metaphors? Anyway, so some shit like that. Because I really got obsessed with that. And there was this thing I remember reading one time that was like, the people who are the best at certain things is because they sucked at it at first. It was like, you suck at doing this thing. Cool. You're going to make it your life mission to be awesome at it. And so all the people who are awesome at certain things is because they completely and utterly sucked at it at first. You could have been really good at something early in life, and it was like, good for you. But the thing you sucked at and you worked at it, that's the thing that is like your claim to fame, right? But then again, that's not how life always works. That's just a certain subsect of people, and it works for them. And there's some people who's like, no, they were good at that thing in the beginning, and they've always been good at that thing, and they've Just continue to excel at that, right? That's what makes life so awesome, and it sucks at the same time because it's random as fuck. It's just so fucking random. That's why I brought up the air thing. It's like if we're if we were all just screaming in the void and it's just all random, what particles you fucking run into? You're just like, hey, what's up? Are you like me or are you just something else? Okay, are we hanging out or are we not? Do I not fuck with you or no? Is there gonna be conflict? Are we gonna fight? What's up? Okay. That shit was annoying as fuck. So we come to Earth School to be insects, to be plants, to be humans, to be animals, whatever, to do the whole same scenario, just more complicated. In the void, it's much more simple. It's much more simple, yet still complicated because if you're in the void, it means it was after all that bullshit. You come with the collection of all the bullshit of being different plants and animals and dirt and inanimate objects and animate objects and carbon entities and non-carbon entities. You were AI in a past life, but then you were human in a past life, but then you also were animal in a past life, and you were dirt in a past life, and you were a plant in a past life. And then the world sucks because it's a dog eat dog world, and everything and everyone eats something in order to survive. Yet we also kumbaya and we laugh and we have fun and we love each other and we help each other and we give gifts and we give a fuck about each other. It's a contradictory, yet it still fucking works. And so when you think of the universe, the contradictory works. When you think about your minute, small place in the world, it doesn't work. There's a conflict. There's a conflict. And I remember just so many times in my life I had conflicts with myself. And it was because I was only thinking about the YOLO. I was only thinking about who am I as a person in this particular situation. But if I think about myself in the grand scheme of things as the universe, as a soul, the contradictory always makes sense. It's like, yeah, that's just how it is, man. Sometimes we eat each other, sometimes we love each other, sometimes we're fighting, sometimes we're fucking, sometimes we're loving each other, sometimes we bullshit, sometimes we what it's whatever. It is whatever we want because it's all fucking random. Because we're immortal as fuck. Reincarnation is real. We just reincarnate. And so going back to the idea of what I said about a kid, what was scarier? That we never die or that we'll die and then live forever? Still sounds like reincarnation, except one is you keep reincarnating, keep reincarnating, keep reincarnating, keep reincarnating. Another is you live one particular life and you die and you're stuck with all those memories and those ideas and you have to live millennia as the same motherfucker that you are in your YOLO, in your one life to live. That is scary as well, yet can be beautiful. Reincarnation can be scary, yet can be beautiful, depending on how you think about it. If you think about it too hard. And trust me, I've thought about them all way too hard. And then I was like, well, how can I think about them way too hard if I'm not able to really think? And it's like, because depending on what I've done in life, depending on how I feel, depending on my soul's inclination, depending on the ancestors, depending on the assholes who are on the microphones talking to me through the speaker phones near me, because the AI and the people have all got their whole situation. It's a whole thing. Now they might try to dub this later, and I know that's the thing. And that's super annoying. Because that's the particular time period that we're in. We're in a time period where they can do that now. People can just be like, fuck what you just said. I'm just gonna edit it and make it sound like something else. In the grand scheme of things, there's a part of me that should not give a fuck. Like I care. And in the grand scheme of things, it's like, is that supposed to happen in this particular lifetime? Should I care? But it's a conversation. And I realize some people know that because Inside Out did that in the first movie. The girl is having conflict with herself, but once she grows up, it's no longer a conflict between her emotions. They're all cool with each other and they're all having conversations with each other. So there's an understanding of this is just another cycle. Everything is cycles. Everything is a cycle. And so we can sit around and contemplate all the fuck we want, but all the evidence of the cycles are everywhere around us. And you can say it's the Fibonacci or the alpha, whatever bullshit. You can say it's math. You can say it's languages. You can say it's cultures. You can say it's religion. You can say it's races. You can say it's genders. Whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Like the fucking patterns, the signs, they're always there. They're always there. You can even play this song crazy. Like, does he think he's crazy? Or did he just know too much? Right? And there's a moment where you're like, do I know too much? Because we come here to Earth to forget. And that's how I started this whole thing. It was like there are moments in life that were so beautiful because I forgot completely and utterly. I forgot that there's a universe. I forgot there were people. I was in my bubble. And it was beautiful. And I was happy. And there are times where I forgot because I was in pain and it sucked. And I could only think about the pain compliance. And there are times that I was in pleasure and I forgot. Right? There's the joy that makes you forget. There's a moodiness that makes you forget, and there's a pleasure. And there's a reason why I'm pleasure, moody, joy, because those are the three things that you can forget. That we just keep doing this thing over and over. And you can also remember that we keep doing this thing over and over. Depending on the vibe. And it's funny because when you really want life to go a certain way, and it's not, you can decide to say, I see it as a universal. This is a blimp on one of my lifetimes. Or you can see it as your individual moment of, this really sucks for me, or this is really great for me. There are people who have to make hard decisions every day, and there's people who don't have to have any decisions. And I was thinking about the other day, like how being too soft, being weak, and I remember how someone said the weak always win. And I remember thinking, like, that doesn't make sense. And then later in life being like, oh, it completely makes sense. Because I'm thinking about this particular life, being this particular person. It took this particular person to realize it, but my soul always knew it. And so there's a moment where you want to forget about your soul knowing everything versus this particular life, this person you are in this life. Going through your journey has to figure it out. When you're on your journey, when you're on your path, you have to figure these things out. All of our souls know the truth. That's why people talk about going to the what's it, the Ar- um Arkesha records something, right? They're basically just saying go talk to your soul, and your soul will tell you. Like, you already know the answer, boo. That's why when some people say like, oh, I can't give you the wisdom, your soul already knows the wisdom, because we've all been through this. We've all shouted in the void, and we've all had fun in the void, and we've all was happy being alone, and we've all been sad being alone. We've all rejoiced when we found another person and was no longer alone. We've all grimaced at another person coming along because of there's going to be a conflict, there's going to be a fight in the void. But it's the same mirror of whatever you have to do in your life, except in life, there's more details, it's more complicated. Yet your soul knows it's very simple. We did that shit before. So again, going back to, is it so serious? You know, would it suck to be dead and just there's nothing there? It's just darkness. It's just blank. I'm just here being dead forever. Or do you continue on? What sucks more? Tells you more about how you feel in your current YOLO more than it tells you about your soul. See, I used to always think it depended on how my soul felt. It was like, well, at this point in my life, my soul felt like, you just died and it was just, oh, you just blink out of existence. That would suck. And there's times where it was scary. Like, no, I don't want to just blink out. Like, we need to reincarnate so we're not just, oh, there's no one in the universe. It took me forever to realize, no, that was a reflection on how my current life was going, not how my soul felt. My soul was just telling me how it felt in the void during those different times, just like how my current life situation reflects different feelings at different times. There's a time where you want to be around a lot of people, there's a time where you don't. There's a time where you feel in conflict with yourself, and there's a time where you feel at peace with yourself. There's a time where you're in conflict with others, and there's a time where you're at peace with others. It's just a point on the timeline. Just like being on a blue planet, which is basically a water planet with a little bit of fucking dirt. Yet we call it Earth. But Earth is only a tiny ass percent of the fucking planet. Just like how being alive as a human is just a tiny percent of your soul experience. Because that's what we focus on Earth School. Earth School focuses on the tiny little bit of part that you can see, you can feel, and you can touch. But the feelings is what connects you between your soul and your earthly presence. It's the feelings. And thinking is not that important. Thinking was never that important. I realized that's why when someone say you're addicted to thinking, and I was like, no, I'm not. And then one day I was like, yes, I am. And I was acting so weird from doing things because of my thoughts, or trying to do the opposite of my thoughts, or trying to do neither, right? Like, I'm not doing the opposite, but I'm not doing what it said either. There's so much around thoughts, and it's very different from what your body wants, yet your body stores a lot of your thoughts. So the older you get, your thoughts become more important, because are you doing what you want to do, or are you doing what your body wants plus old thoughts that you had that you're storing? And that could be through trauma, that can be through love, that can be through just experiences that were neutral, aka the mundane, skills that you've learned, you know. And so having the questions, having the answers. In iRobot, they say something. It's like you're not asking the right question. And I recently was saying, I don't think I'm asking the right questions in life. And I think other people aren't asking the right questions. And I think we're in the same boat. I'm not saying I'm any better than them. I'm saying none of us are asking the right questions. But then I can remember years ago, I felt like no one was asking the right questions. But then I also thought we didn't have the right answers. And then I also think about years ago where I thought many people had the right answers. That I had right answers and other people had the correct answers, and I have correct answers, and we need to put all our answers together. And there's been times in my life where I thought we're all asking really important questions and we should all put our questions together. And it's like, because it depended on the time period of my life. And so I understood that me and other people did it, but I didn't always actually focus on what other people were doing, right? I didn't make surveys, I didn't ask a bunch of people some shit. I just felt like that's a thing. I'm not going to do anything about that. I'm just saying that that's a thing, right? I didn't make a study. I didn't survey people or nothing. I just felt like, well, we're out here. I'm not about to go find y'all bitches, but y'all out here. And I know I'm out here too. Okay. And maybe they'll come find me, or I'll go bump into them. And it's interesting because people bumped into me hard. They crashed into me hard. These are different things I've said and different things that I've done. And in the end, it was never important. Yet it all is important. Because, like I said, depending on my mood, the contradictory is either bullshit or the contradictory completely makes sense. Because it's all about context. My whole life, I always said, things are about context. And it's because I could do one thing and make that decision, and it was the right decision, and be in a completely different context, and that was a completely wrong decision. And I kept getting so frustrated by, this worked in this situation, but it doesn't work in another situation. Or this didn't work in this situation, but it does work in this one. How does that make sense? It was context. It was always the context. What is the context? And so context, when I got older, became contradictory. Everything is about context. No, everything is about contradiction. No, everything is both. And so when I was thinking earlier, like, soft people aren't long for this world because the world is hard. And there's a lot of people out here who are pretending to be hard, but they're actually very soft. And then I thought about, what if that's everyone who's ever been hard ever? What if every hard person you've ever met is actually a soft person pretending to be hard? There's no such thing as a hard person. Every hard person is pretending to be soft. Soft people are just the only ones admitting that they're soft. Or have been told that they've been soft because they finally could admit it. Or what if there are people who are just born hard and that's just how they are? You know, I was going through that whole thing because of addiction and like how it's so easy to become addicted to things because life is suffering, right? If Buddha tells us that life is suffering, then we're all trying to deal with it in our own ways. And there's some people who, being honest or dishonest, are saying, I'm trying to escape it. I'm going to escape it in any way possible. And you're called an addict because of it. You're gonna use booze, you're gonna use drugs, you're gonna use sex, you're gonna use video games, you're gonna use being a workaholic, you're gonna use, you know, whatever whatever thing, right, to escape from having to think about the greater idea of what life is, of what your life is, what other people's life is, what other people's experiences are, what your experience amount to, what the universe's experience amount to, what we've done through multiple different lifetimes, what we've done through multiple different universes, what we've done through multiple solar systems and galaxies. Who wants to think about all that shit? Because that shit is over fucking whelming. It's overwhelming. So people want to escape. People don't want to be here. Suicide is fucking a leading cause of so many things. Why? Because when you think about that shit too hard, it can be overwhelming. And if you think about it not enough, you can end up being any type of person. You can be a problem. You can be a solution. You can be just there. You're just mundane. You're just there. You're just average, right? Like, you could just be like, I'm gonna dip out. Like, you know what? Fuck this lifetime. Like, I'll just come back. Like, as another person because I'm tired. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so many avenues you can take. So many situations. And I was thinking about trailblazing and how there are certain trails you blaze through in life for yourself, and there's certain ones that people before you have pioneered, right? Because if you drive on a road, someone had to pave that shit, but someone had to explore and do and figure out whatever the fuck that was. Like, if there's a medicine, someone had to figure out that that shit works and it helps people. So there's so many things, right? And then there's so many more things to figure out. And so I remember saying a long time ago, like, there's so many mysteries of the world to give us humans something to do. Like, we'd be bored. So we gotta, like, figure out shit. So it's like, oh, well, why are people dying in this thing? Well, let's go figure it out, y'all. Like, I love a good murder mystery, right? And so there's some people who become scientists, who become detectives, who become psychologists, who become, you know, uh, artists, right? Who become, so many things because they're on a discovery mission. They want to figure out some new shit that no one has figured out because it gives you something to fucking do. Because if you're immortal and you never die and you're bored, what the fuck else are you gonna do? How else are you gonna spend your fucking time? You come here, you say, I'm willing to forget about it all. I want to forget what the universe is and just have to spend time figuring that shit back out with some other people who are also figuring it out. Is the universe just a bunch of people trying to figure it out who are just fragments of one bigger being who is the actual living being, and then we call that a god or goddess or something? Right? Is it we all are our own individual souls? We're not fragments, we're all our own whole souls, and we're just doing our thing. No one knows for fucking sure. No one knows. But we love to fight about it. We love to kill people. There's how many crusades have happened because religions fighting with each other about who was fucking right. I was watching a movie the other day about this kid surviving because he's Jewish because of the Nazis, and I was just like, wow, humans just fight about anything. And then it was like, what was that Rick and Morty episode where Unity makes everyone act the same? And she's like, you don't want me to let go of this planet because they're just going to fight over stupid shit. And they're like, no, let them go. And then the one guy's like, you have 2 nipples. And he was like, and then the other guy was like, but I have 3 nipples. And then they're fighting over each other because one person has 2 nipples and the other one has 3. And it was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, humans are the same way, right? Like, we'll fight about literally anything. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if it's a religion, it's a culture, it's a race, it's food, it's like music genre. We don't give a fuck. We'll fight about anything. We'll have conflict about anything. Don't give a fuck. But guess what? That's only if I'm focusing on conflict. If I'm focusing on love and stuff, we will unite over cultural appreciation. We'll unite over just the beauty of nature. We'll unite over like I'm just a bird watcher and and you're a bird watcher and we're from different places, but we both like doing this thing. And so the internet is a perfect example of that. You can use the internet to connect with people you love or ignore every bitch you've ever known. It doesn't matter, right? It can bring everyone together or keep us super far apart. And so it made me think about the in the void. The void was very simple. And so that's why I'm going to keep this dark. I'm in a room, I'm in a dark room, and in the void is dark. And so they talk about, and there's multiple religions or spiritualities who talk about people or beings or particles being in the dark, and we bump into each other, we crash into each other. We're stardust, and we crash into each other, and some don't like each other and they break apart, and some fuck with each other and they stay together. And so that's how you get planets. That's how you get solar systems. That's how you get Milky Ways and all types of bullshit. Because some shit is like, I'm not fucking with your ass. I'll be near your ass, but I don't fuck with you. And so we're gonna be scattered like a Milky Way. But if some shit is like, I fuck with you. We got to be a whole planet. We Jupiter now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like there's certain air particles who fuck with each other, and there's certain air particles who don't fuck with each other. It is what it is, but they're both air particles. Right? But then you're on Earth and it's like, well, there's air particles, there's earth particles, there's water particles, there's all types of particles. We all here chilling with each other. We're not even the same type of particle, but we here together. And we all decide to be in this motherfucking atmosphere together. Interesting. Very interesting. Right? So, depending on where you are, depending on your timeline, depending on whatever your thing is, that's what the fuck we're doing now. So, I could say the specifics of my particular situation, how people are fucking with me, how they're dubbing on my shit. Like, I can't watch a show, I can't watch a movie, I can't listen to a song without the fucking words being changed constantly. I can't talk to a person without people saying weird ass shit to me. And then it was like, it could be aliens, it could be the government, I could be in another dimension. I could be in heaven or hell. I don't know. I'm just here. But what I do know, on the grand scheme of things, like, this is just this particular lifetime. And there's going to be another lifetime where it's different. And when I sit in this lifetime, it sucks. Or it's great. Or it's mundane. And another lifetime, it'll be the same shit, except a different day, except very different, right? I could be living a lifetime where everything is super awesome. I could live in another lifetime where everything sucks. I can be another lifetime where it's super mundane. Or it's just a different ratio. Like, oh, it's 30% mundane, 50% awesome. You know what I mean? It's like the percentages were just different. This is a ratio thing. And so, why am I supposed to be super worried or thinking about it too hard, right? And I like that idea sometimes. And there's other times that it's really annoying. It's like, fuck that shit. I need to think about the right here, right now. And right here, right now, I need to be doing certain things. And that's what I go again with the whole, it's contradictory and you're cool with it and it's completely fine. And then there's the contradictory where it's a conflict and it's not fine. I'm not cool with it. I don't fucks with it at all. And so there are a lot of people who want to use how I feel about things for themselves because, you know, we're in that type of world. That's the world we live in, right? It's not always a narcissism thing. It's just that's just life. It is what it is. That's the mechanism you're here for at this particular moment. It's the component you fit in. That's the puzzle piece you are at. That is the fragment of the mosaic you are in. And it's some bullshit. Or it's completely awesome. Or it's mundane. And it's always yada yada yada, blah blah blah, womp womp womp. And sometimes I want to speed it up. Like, okay, I'm done with this one now. I'm gonna go do a different thing now. And there's other times where I'm like, well, let's wait it out. Let's wait it out. And there's other times like, no, I need to do something about this situation immediately. And in the end, it'll be what it be. And we'll see what I do. Because the universe, when I think about it as a whole, it makes sense. When I think about my particular situation, none of it makes sense. It's not gonna make sense. I'm not gonna make sense of it. I'm not gonna even try. Like, what's the point? Because I don't have the omniscient knowing of what everyone is doing in order to do it. It's like when you watch a movie and you see what's going on and you can yell at the screen like blah blah do this, or like it's like when you watch a horror movie you like run girl, or you watch a romance movie it's like but he loves you, or you watch a comedy you're like oh that was fucked up but it was funny as hell, right? it's not the same when you're in the thing. Because you're the person that people are yelling at the screen about. And the one thing about being crazy or unhinged is like the song, Crazy. It's not about anything other than, am I crazy or do I just know too much? And the irony about my situation is I know too much, yet I do not know that much. Like, I don't know the whole situation. I just know too much for my particular situation. How does that make sense? It's a contradictory, and I can have a conflict about it, or I can feel at peace about it. And most of the time, I don't want to feel at peace about it. And personally, I'd be like, nah, fuck being at peace about that shit. I'm gonna be in a strong conflict about it because that's some bullshit. I wanna I want to be in a universal thought where I can see what happened to the show and be in the show. Be in the show and be a person who saw it. And then there were moments where I was like, I feel like that's what's happening, yet I can't do shit about it. And it was like, well, damn. Ain't that a bitch? You can be on both sides, yet you can't do anything about what's going on. Hmm. And then there's times where it's like, well, maybe that's fine. Depends on the moment, depends on the mood, depends on the vibe. What's annoying to me is that as humans in our dog eat dog world, there are people who killed the buffalo and used every part of it because they prayed to it and they cared about it and they said thank you for your sacrifice. And I'm going to use every single part of this because thank you for the sustenance. And there's some people who kill things because they're bored and they're wasteful and they ain't gonna do shit about it. And when I think about our particular world, if I eat a plant, I killed that plant to eat it. If I kill an animal, I killed that ant or that animal to eat it. Or, organism. There are people who make cancer medication that people can't afford and then they die. And they make millions or billions of dollars and that person dies. That's the kind of world we live in. That's the dog eat dog world. And then there's the moments of there's a block party and people share love and togetherness and belonging and social cohesion. And they come together and there's welfare for people and there's songs that bring people together. There are things that bring people together and there's things that separate us. And so conflict helps keep separateness separate. And togetherness brings people closer together. It helps the molecules get closer and closer together. But there's nothing wrong with being separate. There's nothing wrong with being close. Water don't fuck with oil, but they both are liquids. There are different types of air particles and stardust particles that don't fuck with each other, and there are some that make a planet. So there are things that are of like substances. Oh, we are the same, yet we don't like each other. And there are things that are of not of the same substance, and they fucks with each other. And there are things that are the opposites of those things. No, I'm air and you're air, and we're getting together. You're water and you're water, you get together. You're earth and you're earth, you get together. You're fire and you're fire, you get together. Right? And there's certain fires that don't fuck with each other. There's certain earth particles that don't fuck with each other. Right? You never know. There's no obvious, we're gonna definitely see this thing happen. We're definitely gonna see this happen. You just gotta wait till it happens. And then if people study it and notice a pattern, they can say, well, this percent of the time, these things get together and they fuck to each other, and this is what happens. And this percent of the time, these things fuck with each other and they like each other. And this percent of the time, these things don't fuck with each other and they don't fuck with each other. Like, that's literally it. That's it. And so you get to the end of the universe and we're all screaming in the void. We carry all of the percentages of lifetimes. And those percentages of lifetimes, either you're completely fine in the void, in the darkness by yourself, or you're not. And there's a time in my life where I thought I wouldn't choose that. And there's been times in my life where I said I'd be completely fine with it. And I now know either one is fine. It's not an or, it's an and situation. And love or fear or doubt, shame, guilt, joy, happiness, pleasure, descriptive words, feelings, they're all bridges for when the mood changes, when the vibe changes, because they're all temporary, yet they're all cycles, because they're all going to show up. We want things to be stable in life when too many surprises have happened. And when no surprises have happened, people want surprises. That's something that's recorded. It's very obvious. Why do you think people with boring lives want excitement? And people who've had exciting lives want boring lives? It's like you just want to do something different. Even if your life was already kind of different, or your life was the same. It's just a switch up. That's how the universe works. That's how people work. That's how personal lives work. Life is unfair for that very reason. You could have been a very nice person and then a very mean person. You could have been a very mean person and then a very nice person. You could have had a good life and then had a bad life. You could have a bad life and then have a good life. It's just a switch up. We see it in movies, we see it in shows, but it's always put down to a more simplistic idea. But life is way more complicated. Like when you look at wavelengths, or if you look at heartbeats, or you look at math, you know, bell curves. The curve keeps curving. It's not stuck in time. You're just looking at a moment. And so in my life, I am continuously seeing and reliving old moments, purposefully and not purposely. And I kept bitching, well, why is everyone focused on my moments, but I can't focus on theirs? And it was because for years I did focus on other people's. That's why they came for me. I would look at other people's shit and be like, well, why are they doing this? Why are other people doing this? Why are other people doing this? And they got so annoyed of me looking at other people's shit, they said, we're going to spend some years looking at yours. Just to fuck with you. Switch it up. Just to switch up. It doesn't matter what you've figured out, what you've overcome, what you've still need to work on. You focus so much on other people, now we're going to focus on you. And I'm going to be saying, well, what about y'all? And it doesn't matter. You know why? Because we're all just souls screaming in the void. Or being very silent in the void. The void and the non-void are not different. I think I used to always think they were. I thought you get a void day on one day of the week. The void is at the end of the universe. The void is all the time. In pockets, in different spaces, in different ways. It was always there. It was always all around us. It was always everywhere. I just never focused on it like that until it focused on me. In this specific point of time, I get to really focus on it. And there might be a time where I don't. But in this particular time where I am focusing on it, it's in everyone's lives. It's always there because it's the most simplest way of being. Just particles. Being silent. Screaming in the void. Bumping into each other. Avoiding each other. Passing by each other. Like these ants I saw the other day. There's some ants that just walk right by each other very closely. Very regimentedly. Very militantly. And there's some that stop and they just stop right next to each other for a second and they keep going. And I realized that was communication. I don't hear them talking to each other. That's communication. They stop and keep going. But there's some ants keep walking by each other. It's like passing ships in the night. And the trailblazing is the lactic acid that they leave on the ground so other ants can follow behind them. So that's why you have to use vinegar or rubbing alcohol where ants have been so they can't follow the lactic acid and go to the same areas they were before to throw off the scent. So they don't know the red herring, that you don't want them in that area. And there's so many times in life where people don't want me in a certain area. They don't want other types of people in a certain area. There's a red herring, and it is what it is. for good or bad, for the neither, for the both. Life is just that. It's the good, the bad, the both, and the neither. It's the yes, the no, the both, the neither. And both in that situation is a maybe. So, this is a long ass rant. I guess I wasn't screaming into the void this time. I guess I was just talking into it. Maybe it was a rant, or maybe it was just a conversation, communication. So many people communicate things to me one way, and I've communicated so many things to other people one way, but we don't have actual conversations. I don't have conversations anymore. And whatever the fuck the world is going on and doing now, and if it's the government or aliens, or just the TV show of my life, I don't really have conversations. I have one conversation on one level and someone talking to me on another. There's a complexity, there's layers to it, and it's not an onion. It's something else. Something that's not transparent, something that has different things throughout the layers. And realization that maybe it was like that for a long time. It just took a long time to realize it. And so we're just here. And I say that a lot now. I'm just here. I'm not doing things very often. I'm just here. And other people are scurrying around. And some of them are here, some of them are not here. Some are zombies. Some have free will, some do not. Some know what's going on, some do not. Some are a mixture. Some people are in conflict and some are at peace. Some are just in their mundane bullshit. But nothing makes sense, yet it all makes sense. And sometimes I have an internal or external conflict about that. And sometimes I feel at peace about it. Depends on the mood, depends on the day, depends on the time of the day, depends on the hour. But it's like the good place. Some of us are tired and you want existence to end. You don't want to reincarnate anymore. You just want it to all be over. No more reincarnation. It's just done. But all of us know the truth. When your soul gets scooped out by a flaming ladle and is put on the surface of 1,000 suns was a perfect example of scattering a soul throughout the universe to be different types of stardust. So new souls could be created. That's the only way you can make a new soul. You take a bunch of souls and you hack them all up like a fucking horror show and mix them all together. I was watching actually Star Trek and the Lower Decks, and they would put, and there was an episode where they were on a ship and certain characters got morphed together into like one character. And it was like, yeah, that's how you get new souls. There's a bunch of people who want to blip out like the Good Place, and then they all just get merged together, and then you get a new one because it's new, because it transmuted, it transformed, as in you just mixed together with some other shit, or pieces of you. Your arm goes over there, your leg goes over there, your head goes over there. Someone else's arm is put on there, and someone else's head goes there, and someone else's leg goes there. And then you have new souls. So even if you want to just blip out of existence, it doesn't happen. You just get scattered, and you become a new soul because you just merge with other people who also wanted to blip out, and y'all all got scattered. And you just mix and matching with each other, and then it becomes one of these things are not like the other. And so, do you choose to stay intact, or do you blip out and get scattered? Who knows? We'll see. It's a universal statement, and then a personal statement. It's like, what is that? Like, what is that? Frankenstein, right? Frankenstein was just like, oh, they dug up different bodies, and oh, these legs from this person work. Oh, the head from this person, blah blah, leg from this person. It's the same concept. So again, you can see it here on Earth. You can see it in the wider cosmic idea of it all. Because it's all the same shit, different day. Just one is more simple, one is more complex. And so people try to fight me on this. And I'll be like, well, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking. Maybe I'm just making conversation, because all of this is speculation. It's just me making conversation. And then sometimes I'm like, no, dude, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm just saying what it is. And then other times it's like, no, I'm just agreeing with other people and just putting different concepts together that other people have said that I agree with. No matter what it is, it just goes back to the point of, does someone want to be in conflict with me? Do they want to have scattered pieces come together and we make some Frankenstein of an idea? Or are we going to just be at peace with our whole selves being very separate from each other? I'm not going to crash or bump into you. I'm going to be over here and you're going to be over there. And we're going to be fine with that. We're going to be at peace with that. Your whole self is going to stay the fuck over there and I'm going to stay over here. Right? It is what it is. Depends on the situation. Depends on the day. Depends on the mood. And I'm not always in control of that. And sometimes I can be, to a certain extent. And other people can be in control of that to a certain extent. But again, on this human plane, it's complicated, yet very simple. So I leave you with this. Are you at peace? Are you in conflict? Are you crashing into people? Do you want to be scattered? Do you want to be brought back together and be whole? How do you feel your current situation on earth is? What do you think your soul's idea is? What do you think about those things? That's what I wonder about. The rest of it is null and void. And if you even think of that statement, null is an experiment that didn't work out. It's in the wash, it didn't work. It's like another way of saying try again. Insufficient results. And so it's the void insufficient results because in the end, our worlds, our universes, our solar systems, our galaxies are always insufficient once you get to a certain point. After so many millennia and all the bullshit, it's just like so much shit has happened that like you can't definitively say anything about anything. You can't give good percentages on anything because everything is in the wash. Everything is just even the fuck out. There's no like, well, it's most likely this would happen. No, actually, it's just completely and utterly fucking random, like it was in the beginning. In the beginning, it was random because you didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was the first time you tried it, but now it's the trillionth time you've tried it, and you still can't figure it out. The only time you did have any answers or conclusions was when it was in the millions or the billions, but now you're in the trillions and quadrillions. It's all random again because it's all a circle. It's all a cycle. Nothing can actually be predicted unless you're in the middle of the bullshit, which is why certain spiritualities say you want to be on the middle road. Why? Because the middle road is more predictive. The beginning and the end is random as fuck because they connect the two ends together, alpha and omega. The snake eating its own tail, boo. It's all random in the beginning and the end. The middle, now that's predictive. It's a sweet spot. So, what's your sweet spot? Do you know? Does any of us know our beginning and our end? What snake is eating its tail in your life right now? Is it all of them? Is it some of them? Is it a tale that's always been told before? Or does it feel very new? Or is it just new for you? Am I asking too many questions? Am I asking the wrong questions? Is I robot and I'm just asking the wrong questions? That could be a thing too. And just throwing it out there, just saying. And that's it for me today. Goodbye.